Right. So we've filled out this information, the balance sheet, and we filled out the income statement. I filled it out correctly. I double checked, and as you can see, my statement says true down here. My balance sheet balances, and all of these charts don't show me that there's an error. Nothing's miscolored. Now, if we come to the income statement, I input everything correctly. I made sure that my distributions were input as a positive number. My contributions were input as a positive number. And if I scroll to the right, my statement says true, and my statement of reconciliations is input correctly. I don't have any errors. No, nothing's missing. And then in my income statement, my presentation chart, we can see that nothing is miscolored. So after you finished filling out the balance sheet and income statement, and remember there's videos explaining how to do that, I want you to go all the way to the right to the tab titled DCF Working Capital. That means discounted cash flow working capital. And I'm going to explain what's going on here to you before I actually start working on it. Okay? So in order to do that, I have to unhide these cells. And now don't get overwhelmed. This is fairly simple stuff. It's nothing above what you guys know. This thing is no smarter than you are. Okay? So what's being told here, and let me hide this part. Let me hide all this. You don't need to see that. Hide. What's happening up here is we've taken our sales account, we've taken sales from 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. We've made an average, and then we're going to input a number here that causes this number to increase. So imagine we say sales increased by 20%. We're going to say, imagine we say sales increased by 20%. We're going to come down here and we're going to say that sales increased by 20%. And then that creates a scenario where we have a 20% stress factor on our sales, and then here we have a 10% stress factor on our sales, which means we've increased our we've increased our sales by 20%, and then we increased our sales again by 10%. So this is a 20% increase from sales here, and then it's a 10% increase from sales here. So we're increasing sales by 20%, and then we're increasing sales by 10%. So again, all we're doing here is taking our sales growth, and then we're going to input 20%, the average reported sales growth, or the last sales of the years. So when we look at the previous periods of sales, we've got a 43% sales growth between 2022 and 2023. We've got a 4.2% sales growth from 2023 to 2024. And then as of year to date, we have a 29% sales decrease. So if we take the average equals average, open parentheses, and we take the average of these sales, then it's going to be a 6% sales growth. Now, as we say here, in order to stress the model, we must take the largest of the following. So we don't want to take the average reported sales growth, because remember, the average reported sales growth is less than 20%. And our most recent sales growth is a negative 29%. So in order to stress our model, we're going to do 20% so that we can be conservative. We're going to assume that sales go up by 20%. And again, you might not understand why that means that we're being conservative. But the reason is because a sales increase can cause a shortage of cash. And again, I'll explain that later on. I hope that you read the chapter on net working capital, because what we're going to go over today is not going to make sense if you didn't read that chapter. Again, please read the chapter explaining working capital, because what we're going over today will not make sense if you didn't read it. So remember, if sales increase and our sales were made on accounts receivable, meaning everyone purchased from us on account, we didn't receive any cash, but what we did do was we bought more inventory so that we can supply those sales. We paid our employees so that they can turn the inventory, or they can provide the services for those sales. And we've done a few other things in order to create those sales. So we've spent cash, but all of those sales were made without us retaining a single dollar. So we didn't make a single dollar on those sales. So this model is going to tell us how much cash we lost if sales increase by 20%. Remember, we're increasing sales because if sales go down, then that means less people purchased on account, and that means we're going to get payments on our accounts receivable, and we're going to end up with more cash. So we want to increase sales, because increase in sales means less cash. Okay? So now we're going to go down to cost of goods sold. So I want y'all to look at cost of goods sold in row 23, and I want you to look at cost of goods sold in row 7. So I'm going to explain what's happening in row 7, and then I'm going to explain what's happening in row 23. So in row 7, we're pulling our cost of goods sold from the previous periods. So this is taken from the income statement. This is taken from the income statement. This is taken from the income statement. And this is taken from the income statement. So we have cost of goods sold for 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. And down here in row 23, we calculate what percentage of cost of goods sold make up sales. So what percentage of cost of goods sold make up sales is calculated in row 2023. And that's a simple equation. What we're doing is we're taking sales in 2022, and then we're taking cost of goods sold in 2022, and then dividing that by sales in 2022, and that gets us 88%. We do the same thing in 2023. We do the same thing in 2024, and we do the same thing in 2025. Now, I want you to take a guess at what we're going to do in this blue cell. There's instructions right here, and there are also instructions over here. Okay? So if you get lost on your own, you can come over here, and there's going to be instructions to explain what's going on over here. Okay? Try not to get lost though. So, back to it. Our cost of goods sold is 88%, 90%, 89%, and 91%. So what are our suggestions? We can take the last year cost of goods sold, which is going to be 89%. Remember, we're taking the last full year, not the last year-to-date period. So if this is a year-end statement, then we're going to take this. But if it's a year-to-date statement, then we're not going to take this. We're going to take this instead. So again, not to confuse you there, we're going to take the last year of cost of goods sold, which is going to be 89.8%, or the average last 4 periods. And what's going to be our deciding factor? Our deciding factor is going to be the largest of the two. So our average is 89.7%, which is smaller than 89.8%. So we're going to pick 89.8%, which is our most recent full year end of cost of goods sold. The reason why we're not going to take year-to-date cost of goods sold in this situation is because we only have 6 months of cost of goods sold, and some industries fluctuate. So their cost of goods sold will be more in the beginning of the year, or it'll be less at the beginning of the year. And that causes the average cost of goods sold throughout a year to be different than the cost of goods sold within the period. So if we only have 6 months, we only have 6 months of data. We don't know if the next 6 months cost of goods sold are going to increase, or if the next 6 months cost of goods sold are going to decrease. So instead, we're going to take the most recent full year end of cost of goods sold, and that's 2024 for me. Now for you guys, you might have 3/30, 2025, and you're not going to take 3 months worth of cost of goods sold. You're going to want to take the full 12 months worth of cost of goods sold. So you're going to go back to 2024's. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So, operating expenses, non-cash expenses. Operating expenses less non-cash expenses in row 8. And we're going to go over defensive interval ratio in row 24. Now, I don't necessarily want you guys to worry too much about defensive interval ratio, but keep in mind what it does is it calculates how long it takes to run out of current assets when you're financing operating expenses. So it calculates how many days you have where you can pay for your operating expenses with your current assets on hand. So it's literally your operating expenses divided by your working capital. I think that's what it is. Okay, let me see. C8 divided by C13. Okay, like I said, it's gonna be your it's gonna be it doesn't matter. The point is that you got 221 days here, you have 185 days here, and then you have 342 days here. You also have 371 days here. So in this scenario, we're going to take the lowest of the most recent period, or the average of all 4 periods, including this one. Okay. So we're going to take the lowest of the most recent period, and by period we mean the full fiscal year end. Remember that, guys. Or we're going to take the average. So equals average, open parentheses, change that. That's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be days. So we have 280 days. So 280 days is less than 342 days. So the reason why we want to take the lowest of these is because what we're getting here is that in 280 days, we will not be able to repay our operating expenses with our current assets. Whereas 342 days, that means that we have 342 days until we can't repay our operating expenses with our current assets. So what this is telling us is that we have 280 days before we run out of current assets that can pay our employees. Again, if we make no more sales, we make our last sale today, we have 280 days until we can't pay our employees. We have 280 days until our employees starve. 280 days until our employees go on strike. 280 days until our employees start to sue us. 280 days until we can't pay our operating expenses. So we don't want to take 342 days because 342 days gives us an extra 62 days. That's saying, no, we don't have 280 days. We have 342 days. That means we have 62 more days than we're expecting. No, we don't want to do it that way. We want to assume that we're going to run out of money faster. Keep that in mind. We always want to assume that we're going to run out of money faster. We're conservative here, guys. We don't want to play that game. We're going to run out of money. That's how we want to play it. So anyways, 280 days. That's what we're going to put here. So now we've made it down to accounts receivable days on hand. If you read the working capital chapter, you'll know how to calculate accounts receivable days on hand. You'll know how to calculate inventory days on hand. And this company I'm working on now does not have any inventory. Other current assets is calculated as a percentage of sales, which means we're not going to calculate that based on days on hand. We're going to calculate it based on percentage of sales. And you don't need to calculate this anyways. Don't worry about other current assets. Don't worry about accruals. Don't worry about other current debt, percentage of sales. Don't worry about those. I want you to worry about AR days on hand, inventory days on hand, and accounts payable days on hand. So anyways, back to it. We're doing accounts receivable days on hand, row 26, and we're going to go over accounts receivable in row 10. So we're pulling our accounts receivable straight off of our balance sheet. This is accounts receivable in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. That's how much accounts receivable we have. And then we're going to calculate down here our days on hand, which means we're taking 365 and we're dividing that by our AR turnover. AR turnover is revenue divided by accounts receivable. Okay? So what are we going to input here? We're going to input, in order to stress the model, choose the largest of the following. And the following are average of the last 4 periods or the last fiscal year end days on hand. So let's do that. Average. Let's calculate this. Okay. Close parentheses, enter. 24 days. So 24 days is less than 28 days. So now we're going to do 28 days. And the reason why we want to assume 28 days is because unlike this This is telling us how many days we have until we run out of cash. This is telling us how long it takes for us to get paid. So it takes us 28 days for our customers to give us cash for the sales that we've made. Hopefully you guys understand how accounts receivables work. Accounts receivables has an inverse relationship with cash. Every time we make a sale on accounts receivable, that means that we did not make any cash. The more accounts receivable, the less cash we make. The more cash we make, the less accounts receivables we make. So we wanted to take more time for us to be repaid, because remember, we're conservative guys. We don't want to play this game. We don't want to say, oh, it only takes us 24 days to get paid back. Well, no, it takes us 28 days on average. It doesn't take us 24 days. It takes us 28 days. So that's 4 days without any cash, a single dollar in our pocket that we thought we'd have cash. That's 4 days when we told our suppliers, hey, we'll get you on the 24th. Little did we know, we're not getting paid until the 28th. So I want you guys to assume we're not getting paid until the 28th. We're not getting paid until the longer time. We want to stretch this model. We don't want to get paid on the 24th. We want to get paid. Well, we want to get paid on the 24th. But I'm just saying that we're going to assume that they're not going to pay us on the 24th. They're going to pay us on the 28th. They're going to take their time, their sweet time, to pay us our money. Now, this company doesn't have inventory, but for the sake of you guys understanding how to calculate it, some of you guys do have inventory. So we're going to do the same thing that we did just above. It's the same logic. Remember, the more inventory we have, that means the less sales we've made. And that means the less AR we have, and that means the less cash we have. Because we have this inventory on hand that we bought with cash. Or we bought it with accounts payable, but we'll get to that. We bought this with cash. And now we haven't gotten any money for it. So right here, we're going to assume the largest of the average or the most recent full year days on hand. So we got 0 days here. 0 days is equal to 0 days. So we're just going to leave it at 0 days. So accounts payable. I want y'all to take a guess at what we're going to do here. If we want to do the thing, we want to assume that we're not going to have any cash on hand. What would we do with accounts payable that would decrease our cash? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, we're going to pay our suppliers. And that's exactly what we would do if we want to decrease cash on hand. We want to pay our suppliers. We got a good relationship with them. Hey, we'll take the hit. We'll lose the cash on our hands so that they don't get upset. So in this situation, we're going to take the lesser, the smallest of the average 4 periods, or the most recent fiscal year end. Here, again, we're taking the smaller of the two values. So right here we have 5 days, and then our most recent fiscal year end of 2024, we have 11 days. So right here, if we're doing 5 days to repay, that's less time than 11 days. And we're taking 5 days because that means every 5 days, we're going to give these guys more money. Or not every 5 days, but we're going to repay these guys in 5 days. We're getting them their money back quickly. Okay, now that we've got all this filled out, I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come back and I'll explain what all this means.